We have all heard the phrase that being a Christian is about a relationship, not a religion, yet the pressure to show up in a specific building every Sunday morning can feel like a heavy weight. For many of us, the traditional church experience has become a source of confusion or even pain, leading to the nagging question of whether our standing with God is tied to a physical location. You might find yourself sitting on your couch on a Sunday morning, feeling a deep love for Jesus but a profound disconnect from the pews, wondering if you are somehow doing it wrong because you aren't in the crowd. The reality is that the definition of what it means to be a follower of Christ has been tangled up in cultural traditions and architectural expectations for centuries. We are going to peel back those layers today to see if your salvation is actually at risk if you decide to stay home. The reason this topic feels so high stakes is that we live in a culture that often values performance and attendance over the actual condition of the heart. For a beginner or someone who has felt burned by a religious institution, the idea of church can feel more like a country club with strict membership rules than a spiritual hospital for the broken. We often see people who attend every single service but don't seem to reflect the character of Jesus, while others who haven't stepped foot in a sanctuary for years exhibit a deep, quiet faith. This creates a massive internal conflict because we want to be good Christians, but we struggle to find where we fit in the modern ecclesiastical landscape. It is important to realize that your hesitation or your questions do not make you an outcast or a failure in the eyes of God. When we look at the foundational message of the Bible, the answer to whether you have to go to church to be saved is a resounding and clear no. In the book of Ephesians, specifically chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, the Apostle Paul writes that it is by grace we have been saved through faith, and this is not from ourselves but is the gift of God. This means that your status as a child of God is based entirely on the finished work of Jesus on the cross and your personal trust in Him, not on your attendance record or how many hymns you have memorized. If you have placed your faith in Jesus, you are part of His family regardless of whether you are in a cathedral, a coffee shop, or your own living room. The gospel is about a transformation that happens within the soul rather than a transaction that happens at a church door. To go deeper, we have to look at the word church itself, which in the original Greek of the New Testament is the word ecclesia. This word does not refer to a building with a steeple or a specific set of programs, but rather to a called-out assembly of people who follow Jesus. When the Bible talks about the church, it is referring to the global community of believers throughout history and across the world today. In the book of Acts, we see that the early believers met in homes and shared meals together, showing that the essence of the church is found in the people rather than the property. Understanding this distinction changes everything because it shifts the focus from an event you attend to a family you belong to. God is much more concerned with how we love one another than He is with the square footage of the room where we gather. While your salvation is secure without a building, the Bible uses a powerful analogy in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 to explain why being alone is rarely the best path for our growth. Paul compares the followers of Jesus to a human body, where every person is a different part like an eye, a hand, or a foot. If a hand is cut off from the rest of the body, it doesn't stop being a hand, but it loses its ability to function, to be nourished, and to fulfill its purpose. Just as a hand needs the blood flow from the heart and the signals from the brain to thrive, we need the encouragement, the correction, and the support of other believers to reach our full spiritual potential. Staying isolated might keep you safe from some of the messiness of people, but it also starves you of the vital connection that helps your faith grow strong. In our modern world, the modern analogy for church can be found in how we interact with technology and the internet. Think about your smartphone and how it can function on its own using its internal battery and stored data, but it only reaches its full power when it is connected to a network. When the phone is offline, it can still perform basic tasks, but it cannot receive updates, it cannot communicate with the outside world, and it eventually runs out of power without a source to plug into. In this same way, a Christian can exist in isolation, but they often find themselves running on low battery and missing out on the vital updates and communal power that come from being synced with a larger network of believers. Connection is not about the hardware of the building, but about the software of the relationships that keep us updated and energized. A common objection many people have is the valid point that church is full of hypocrites, or that I've been hurt by people in the church before. This is a painful reality that we must acknowledge because the church is made up of imperfect, broken people who are still in the process of being changed by God. It is entirely understandable to want to distance yourself from an environment where you felt judged, controlled, or neglected by those who claim to represent Christ. However, we have to remember that a hospital is full of sick people, and we don't stop believing in medicine just because some of the patients or even the staff are struggling. The flaws of the people do not change the truth of the message, and finding a healthy community is often the very thing that helps us heal from the wounds of a toxic one. Knowing that you are saved by grace should take the pressure off, but it should also invite you into a new way of living starting tomorrow morning. Instead of asking, "Do I have to go to church?" try asking, "Where can I find my people?" Because the goal is not to check a box, but to find a group where you can be known and where you can serve others. This might mean finding a small group of 3 or 4 friends to study the Bible with, or it might mean visiting a different kind of church that focuses more on community than on performance. Your perspective should shift from seeing church as a chore to seeing it as a resource for your own soul and a place where your unique gifts are needed. Faith was never meant to be a solo sport, and finding your teammates will change the way you experience the presence of God. We want to hear from you because your story is a vital part of this conversation and can help someone else who is feeling lost. Our question of the day is this: have you ever felt like you didn't fit in at a traditional church? And how did that impact your view of God? Please share your thoughts in the comments below so we can learn from one another and build a community that values honesty over perfection. If this message helped clarify things for you or gave you a sense of peace about your journey, please consider subscribing to join us as we explore more of these deep questions together. We are all just travelers on this road, and we are grateful to be walking it alongside you as we seek the heart of God.